Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Founders Chair podcast. Andy Goldberg here. Very, very delighted to have on the show today Katie Drummond from Syme Drummond. Katie, welcome to the Founders Chair podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Really excited to hear your story, Katie. Can we start off just by hearing your personal story, just a little bit about where you're from and what you get up to when you're not at work and so forth?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Glasgow, and I now live in the countryside in East Ayrshire in Scotland with my husband. I've got two boys, and I also have a very chaotic but much loved pack of five, soon to be six dogs. So it's fair to say life at home is loud and full of character. And outside of work, I love fashion and anything creative, really. I've got a real kind of eye for design and detail. So I'm definitely someone who enjoys the energy of kind of building something new. But I guess as I've got older, I've probably come to appreciate the quieter moments as well. So I just love to go for walks with my kids and my dogs.
Yeah, you're going to need quiet moments, I guess, if you when you
Yeah,
have kids and five
100%.
dogs, and but you wouldn't have it any other way.
I absolutely wouldn't know.
Tell us the story then, Katie, about how the business came about in the first place. At what point did you have the confidence to go out and do it on your own?
Sure. Do you know, it's funny. I think if you ask most people that are in recruitment, they probably never set out to work in recruitment. It kind of happens. And I suppose I'm the same, and I probably never really planned to start my own business either, if I'm honest. It came about, after years of working in recruitment and executive search. The company that I was working with at the time was acquired by venture capitalists, and there was a definite shift. And I really started to notice how things could be done better, sort of more rigorously, more thoughtfully, more humanely, if I'm honest. And I reached a point where I figured staying in that company and system that I didn't really believe in felt more of a risk than actually just stepping out and building something of my own. And a lot of my network at the time, so like hiring managers, customers that I was working with, they'd already kind of asked me, have you not thought about doing this yourself? And I think it was probably that encouragement that really helped me build my own confidence to think about starting for myself. That was kind of in me somewhere, but I maybe needed that gentle push from external partners to say, why don't you just do it?
Yeah, so you had people in your community, people in your environment that were a positive force.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe so.
And it was interesting what you said. It might be more of a risk staying than it is going out and
Mhm.
doing it, which is interesting because everybody talks about all the risk of starting your own business and going out on your own, but there is just as much risk of being employed, isn't there? You never know what's going to happen to your company or your job.
Yeah, I believe so. And as I say, I think I just saw behaviors and senior leaders that just didn't align with my values. And, I've always been somebody that's very much driven by values. So I just felt it, as you quite rightly said there, it was more of a risk to stay than it was to leave.
Yeah, and the values are important, aren't they?
Usually.
You creating a company that you can now just align the company to your values rather than rely
Yeah,
on somebody else's values. Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, okay, so tell us a little bit about Syme Drummond. What do you do and who do you do it for?
So, Syme Drummond is a recruitment consultancy working across the UK. A large part of our work is in Scotland, but we do also support customers with sites and teams across England and further afield. And actually, some of our customers even have global reach, and we're proud to support them whenever they need us. We started out as a specialist HR search firm, but as the good business has grown, and also through the strength of the relationships that we've built with our hiring managers, we've expanded into sort of broader leadership roles and specialisms outside of HR. As a business, we're accredited by the Institute of Retrained Search, which is effectively like the gold standard in being professionally trained in the latest exec search methodologies. So it kind of gives our customers the assurance that we fully understand and can deliver on the most up-to-date proven techniques used in successful hiring, particularly at leadership and senior levels. And then I guess in addition to retained search, we also offer market insight reports, benchmarking, fractional talent acquisition services. So we can either provide all or just part of the recruitment process where maybe your internal teams need that extra support. So going back to what you were saying there, our values are at the heart of everything that
Yeah.
we do. We're game changers, we're connected, we're consistent, and we're very purposeful in our actions. So that mindset shapes how we work and how we communicate, and I guess how we build our relationships.
But you started off quite niche. So was it straightforward expanding your marketplace and your services, or was there a challenge in communicating a new message?
No, actually, it was a natural evolution because we started out in HR. We've obviously built a very strong, credible network with HR hiring managers. So because we were able to showcase what we could do within that industry, it led to very natural conversations with CEOs, MDs, because we were already going with like an informal reference from their HR leaders. So it actually was quite a natural step to broaden out of the HR market into non-HR hires. So actually, I would say it all comes down to the relationships with people. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but it did help us hugely get in front of other senior stakeholders to influence those conversations.
Yeah, you've got the credibility and the credentials, really,
Yeah,
the reference.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So what would you say has been your biggest learning as a business owner?
Um, I think one of the biggest learnings for me personally is you don't need to do everything at once. I'm a total perfectionist, so I know I can overthink, I can procrastinate, I can get caught up in the tiniest of details. But over the years, I've learned the value of progress over perfection. So I love the phrase version one is better than version none. So even if it's not perfect, just do it, get it out there. So once it's out there, it can evolve and you can fine tune it to be even better. And I think that's been a massive shift in mindset for me personally.
Yeah, the thing I always say to my clients is start before you're ready.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wait until everything is perfect. It's too late. So
Yeah,
speed of implementation, speed of decision making, that kind of thing.
totally, totally.
But as a perfectionist, that goes against your nature. So
It's very hard, Andy. I'm not going to lie. It's very
do you have
hard.
to fight that, or
Yeah, yes. As I say, this has taken me a lot of time. So it's something I have to work on, but I'm a lot better at delegating and as I say, let's just do it rather than
yeah,
procrastinating over every detail. Let's just do something.
yeah. That's a really big learning because I see that a lot talking to business owners. They're waiting for the right moment, waiting
Yeah,
for the right time. And while you're waiting, your competition are doing.
absolutely. Absolutely.
What's been your biggest challenge during the years, and how did you work through it? And did you have help to get you through it?
Listen, I think probably the biggest one was COVID. I'm sure that's probably a fairly popular answer to that question, but it was such an uncertain time. Everything just stopped. Virtually every search mandate I was working on went on hold. So, at the time, instead of stepping back, I leaned into my relationships. I went back out to hiring managers and really asked them, what do you need from me right now? What are your pain points? What's keeping you up at night? And I think it was through those conversations that, I realized that so many businesses, regardless of sector, were facing the same problems, and I thought, I'm actually in a really privileged position here. I've got trusted relationships. I can probably do more than just transactional recruitment. And that led to one of the key changes in my business, which was setting up a private community group where people could really sort of share best practice and real problems that they were facing that day operationally or within that period at their work. And it wasn't about recruitment, actually. It was about HR and people and what organizations were doing, what they were feeling, what they were seeing, what they were facing. And I think at the time, the group started at maybe about 100 members, and it's now close to, I think it's 1,200 it's at now. So it's been really pivotal, and it's really helped solidify our brand, it's deepened our relationships, and it's really helped show what my business stands for, which is great.
Yeah, and you mentioned relationships earlier, probably a couple of times, and
Yeah.
so really, what you did was you called your clients and you asked, "How can I help?"
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of our
Without trying to sell
clients,
them something.
no,
Yeah,
well, there was no point really because nobody really knew what was happening. But I think a lot of the people that I spoke to were like, gosh, we've not heard from anybody, you know, all of your competitors have just gone to ground. Whereas I think that's where I just thought, well, no, I'm just going to lean into this and actually speak and find out what they need rather than assuming. So it worked really well for me.
Do you think that companies don't um, think enough about how they're building the relationship, the personal relationship with their customers, or they're just waiting until there's a sale on the table? Do you think we need, just maybe in this country, do you think we need to be doing more of that?
For me, relationships are everything. And I know certainly the customers that I work with hold it very high in their values and how they go out to market when they do need a search partner. And I would be surprised if there were many that said the relationship wasn't one of the key sort of driving factors that made them take a call as to who to use to partner with. Um, so yeah, for me personally, I would say relationships are key. I mean, you've got to have that trust or it just won't work. And I
Right.
would say that same for me. I wouldn't partner with a company if I didn't trust their, you know, their leadership teams or their values. It's not conducive to success.
Yeah, definitely. What's the next big thing for you in your business, Katie? What are the next 1 to 3 years look like in terms of opportunity and challenges and growth?
Sure. So probably going back to me about what you were talking about earlier, you know, our roots have always been in HR and that's how we started the business. But I think as we've evolved, we've grown, we are taking on more retained exec search mandates across different functions. And that growth has come, I guess, directly from our customers, you know, based on the success that they've had with us in HR and asking us to apply that process elsewhere. So I launched the retained arm of Syme Drummond last year, which is SD Executive Edge. And that effectively is the part of my business that will work with those senior leadership teams on executive hiring mandates. So that's really allowed me to, I guess, step out of the day-to-day delivery and focus much more on working on the business rather than in it, which has been a really positive shift, not just for me, but I guess for my team, it's really allowed them to sort of step up and take more operational responsibility. So it's given me the freedom to really kind of get out there to senior execs, but also, you know, I've been invited to speak at various industry panel events and get involved in sort of wider conversations, which I can then kind of bring that perspective back into the company. So it's benefited everybody.
As a perfectionist, how have you found delegating more to your team? Is that something you struggle with, or are you quite happy to let people go and do things maybe differently than you would have done it?
I think the answer to that question is if you hire the right people, it's much easier. So I don't get me wrong, I've kissed a few frogs in my time. However, I have a brilliant team, and I really do set out to hire people that are better than me. So that makes my job of delegating much easier. So we are a really small business, and I've got a phrase in my business that's that everybody is a leader, and I genuinely mean it. So I welcome people pushing back and giving their opinions. But yeah, I think if you surround yourself with the right people, delegation becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, do you kind of practice what you preach then? Do you recruit the way you would advise your clients to recruit?
No, not always. Not always, Andy. However, I do now. Yes, I'm a lot more diligent. And it's funny, like I speak to competitors and ask a recruiter to find another recruiter, and we're all like, "Oh my God, I just can't find anybody good enough." You know, it's a much more challenging hire to go out to market to find somebody to work for you. But yeah, we get there.
What advice would you have for business owners or would be business owners who are thinking about going out on their own or who are just starting out on their own?
Yeah, do you know that was me for over 10 years, and you absolutely can do it, and you can do it very successfully. But I would say to them, it's not sustainable for the long term. You know, the biggest thing I would say to them is invest in yourself. So that might mean getting in a coach or bringing in expertise on a short-term basis for the things that maybe you're not strong in. You know, one of the best things my coach ever did for me was really getting me to do a full kind of MOT in myself, for want of a better word, to really kind of analyze, you know, where I'm strong and where I'm not. And I think also when you are on your own, it can be quite a scary thought to hire because you're thinking about that somebody's salary I need to pay, and they've got to, you know, they've got to bring that return on investment quite quickly for me to justify it. But actually, you don't need to hire permanently. There are amazing people doing freelance, fractional contract work on platforms such as like Upwork or Fiverr. Use your network as well. You'll be really amazed at the number of people that genuinely want to help. Just be intentional in your networking and always be open to that support. So I think it's something that you can absolutely do on your own, but I would say be mindful of there's going to come a point in that journey where you will need support.
Yeah, it can be lonely. It can be lonely.
100%. Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
responsibility lies with us.
Yes, definitely.
So what you're saying is we need to make sure we've got the right people in our environment, and we've got to seek that help.
Yeah, and I don't think it needs to be that traditional, I need a permanent hire. Use your network that are, go out and maybe just bring somebody in on an interim basis just to help you over a particular period. But maybe you don't have the skill set to deliver in that area. You can get somebody in to help you with that.
Well, it sounds like you've had some amazing people in your life and your professional life
Yeah.
that encourage you and push you. Anybody you want to give a shout out to before we
Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, 100% my parents, particularly my dad. He was my absolute hero and he was a self-made man, very successful in his work, creative solutions finder, just a real natural leader. And I think having his approval and his backing set me up for success 100%. He was a tough taskmaster, but to earn his respect was massive for me. Um, my team, as I said, are amazing, but definitely my number two, Kelsey. So I hired her 2 years ago, and without a shadow of a doubt, she's been my best hire to date. She's been recently promoted to associate director, and she's like a little mini me, which I love. She brings that energy, the positivity, proactivity, and we've kind of got a phrase between us. It's like, let's just get shit done, and we do. And every business owner needs a Kelsey in their life because she just lifts the team and is somebody I really trust. And for me, trust is everything. So definitely, yeah. My parents, Kelsey, my husband as well. He's obviously been a great supporter of me since starting. But yeah, they're probably the three people I'd like to shout out to.
Brilliant. Well, there you go. There's that shout out there on the internet now forever.
Uh,
Um, Katie, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thanks so much for being in the founder's chair. It was
my
really
pleasure.
enjoyed hearing your story, and some good pointers came out of that. I've taken some notes today. So,
Good.
uh,
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
and thanks to all our listeners for tuning in to the founder's chair. As always, more to come. But in the meantime, just want to say thanks once again to Katie Drummond from Syme Drummond. Katie, thanks again.
Thank you.